Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner Studio, and with me today is Melanie Salins. Melanie is a candidate for the school board in the North River District.
Yes.
Which is really good. She's also on the school board at the moment. She was appointed to fill the unexpired term that's on there now, and I guess it kind of gives you a leg up and kind of lets you see the other side, isn't it? It's a little different.
It is.
It is a little different. So we're going to talk about, normally we ask all the candidates, why in the world do you want to be on the school board?
Well, I'm just one of those people that likes to jump in and help where I can. And when the seat opened up, I thought I'll turn in my resume and see what happens. And I
lo
got
and
the
behold,
spot.
and there you were.
And I got the spot, yes.
That's good. That's good. It is a little different being on the board. You know, it's when we're on one side. Of course, you've been involved in a lot of events in the last couple of years.
Yes, lots of activism.
So,
yes.
and a lot of good causes. So,
yes.
And that's what it takes. And we were just mentioning before we started that the public is really involved in this school board election.
Yes.
And there's been a lot of interest in it, which is good.
Yes, it is.
And we've got a lot more candidates than we normally get for the school board.
Yes.
Which is good.
Yes.
So what makes you stand out, and why should people vote for you?
Well, so the school board is an interesting seat because you need to be able to have the mix of caring about children, an interest in their education, but also an understanding of the political side of things.
Yes.
And
A lot more political than people realize.
it is. It is. And one of the things I didn't even realize before I got onto the school board was, for instance, the Virginia Department of Education, those seats are not elected. Those are appointed. They're appointed by our governor. So there's always going to be that aspect of political influence. And then we have organizations like the Virginia School Board Association, which some people think have this authority over us and have a right to tell school boards what to do, when in fact, if you look into them, they're actually a lobbying group. Mm-hmm. And so now don't get me wrong, they do bring a lot of great conferences and seminars and information to the table, but you always have to look at what they're presenting with an inquisitive eye and think for yourself and decide, do I want to go along with this? Is this best for our local school district? And go from there.
Well, here recently, when we were talking about the mask mandate, I think that's what it was, and the school board pretty much said, well, we're going to go back to school without a mask. And the governor come on and said, well, school boards can decide, and you can keep your doctor. And 2 days later, wham, he come down when school boards pushed back.
Yep.
Most school boards said, no, we're not going to do it. And all of a sudden, I think he was a little surprised, and they come down and mandated that. And so no matter how much pushback you give, there's still these mandates that are the control from the state, because they control a lot of the money.
Correct, they do. And the state will say one thing and then do another. And the lack of ability to plan is what was the real objection for a lot of parents with that, because the registration to do virtual learning had already closed.
Right.
And so parents made their plans, made their decisions based off of certain information, and then everything was changed at the last minute. And nobody likes to feel like the rug has been pulled out from underneath them.
Right.
And then, of course, we also have to look at the fact that even with mandates, in those mandates, there are very clear exemptions for medical and religious reasons. And we need to make sure that we are honoring those.
It'd be interesting to see the whole school say we're all having religious exemptions or some sort of.
Well, that didn't happen.
It's really true. We're only talking about. I think it's just the idea that people are telling you what to do. Most people are going to do what they feel is right for themselves and for their children. Everybody wants their children to be safe. They want them to be protected. No one wants them to be indoctrinated. They normally will voice that, even though they are indoctrinated. But I think most people want their kids to have a good education, and they expect the school system to do that.
Yes.
And I think most candidates running probably, will say all the same thing, but there is a little different. And one thing I'll give you credit for, Melanie, because she always says I'm bashing on her for some reason, I'm misquoting her. But I said, well, watch the video. So anyway, one thing I noticed at the last couple of meetings. Of course, I go to a lot of these meetings and videotape them.
You do. And thank you for that.
And I think it does, and it's surprisingly, we get a lot more views of school board meetings than we get of town council meetings. So it shows you that people are really interested. But I'll notice that the other school board members have asked a lot more questions since you were asking questions.
Oh, good.
It's almost like, well, if she asked, oh, yeah, that's a good, maybe I should ask something. So, maybe it's just me thinking that, but I just got the impression that, and I don't know if you notice, that the other members are more engaged with questions that when people are presenting, the superintendent and the other speakers, I think. So I'm going to give you that credit to
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You have, you give people permission to ask questions.
Thank you.
And I don't think people realize that they can, and you see that a lot even with the council and the board of supervisors. A lot of them just sit there and like they're not in. I mean, I'm sure they're paying attention.
It can be scary. It can be scary to speak up because people assume they want to assume that those of us in those seats are somehow magically informed about every topic under the sun.
That's true, right?
And so you have to. Really, we're the objective eye to be the voice for the citizen. So
Right.
if we're not willing to speak up and ask those questions, nobody is going to speak up and ask those questions.
Right.
And I love it when I get people sending me emails and of course in a polite manner
Sure.
asking questions because they think of things that maybe I didn't think of.
Right.
And that's what a representative's job is to do.
Right. I always thought they didn't want to ask questions because I was sticking the camera in their face, But some do that. But I do, like I said, I think it's great when we can have the dialogue going,
Yes.
and that's really something good. And some of the things you've brought up in the recent board members, the public comments and and I was really surprised that most of the members say, let them talk all they want. I mean, in a way, that's kind of maybe the generic way of saying it, but they're not putting a lot of restrictions on public input, I don't think.
Which is good. No,
Yeah,
I
that's
would
good.
like to see public input opened up to being in the work sessions as
Right,
well.
yeah.
Whether or not we get that,
Well,
it's yet to be
if
seen.
you get elected,
but
that'll be one of your agenda items you can keep pushing
Right.
for. You'll have to do that. So what kind of things do you see going forward that really the public needs to be aware of and that you really want to be an advocate for on the school board?
Well, I think a lot is riding on our governor's race. And I can honestly say I haven't been truly excited about a candidate in a very long time. And if you're paying attention to what Youngkin has in store, planned for schools, I am genuinely excited to what he plans to bring. He has plans for the state to contribute more money so that we can pay our school staff more. He has plans to build 20 innovation schools, which is something that I love. One of the things that I have been most impressed with since getting on the board is the technical school, Blue Ridge Technical School. Dr. Ballinger was pointing out at the last meeting when we were talking about on-time graduation rates that one of the things that's really helping us have a good standing on that is that we are expanding our technical school, and I would love to see that continue to grow, and I think that that Youngkin will help bring the dollars needed in order to do that.
We have some innovative educational programs in our county that a lot of people really probably aren't aware of, and the county did jump on, the school board jumped on the remote learning. They're aggressive on that, and they really went all out. I spent a lot of money on computers and internet. And, I mean, they got a huge pipeline. I mean, if anybody knows about internet, they got a 25 gigabyte network. I mean, that's great. And but yeah, it's and I think they're doubling that. So it's just amazing the amount of technology that the school does have. And then of course the Blue Ridge Technical Center, the diversified minds. I mean, they really want. They don't want to send people home or kids home and not graduate them. They really want to make sure we find a place for everyone.
Right. It's reaching children where they are. And that's one of the things that really interests me is people learn differently. Every child is so unique. And if we can expand what the traditional public school model looks like,
Exactly.
we can reach more children. We can find their blessings and their talents and really make them successful contributing members to our town in the future.
One of the things that you get a lot of criticism over is, you homeschool your children.
Oh, I know. I'm the crazy homeschooler, right? Yeah.
But, and again, I've stood up for you a couple
Thank
times
you.
on that. And I said, well, she brings a different perspective
I
to
do.
the school board that maybe they're not aware of. And So what say you on that?
Well, I find it ironic that I'm criticized so much for being a homeschooler, but we haven't had board members criticized for having their children in private school or for not having children in school at all.
Right.
Really, the school board represents the taxpayers first and foremost, but being a homeschooler does not mean that we are hands off and completely out of the school system. I still have to turn in my notice of intent every year. I have to answer to them with updates and test results for my children. If you'll notice at school board meetings, we actually vote yes or no on whether or not to grant religious exemptions for homeschoolers. Now, granted, I don't think we would vote no, but it could certainly happen. So why should we not be represented? Warren County is very unique. We have had one of the highest in the state homeschooling rates for many years now, and but we also have a high rate of children who are choosing private school as well, and it's 23% now of the students are choosing alternative means of education. I don't like to look at it as an us versus them mentality, and I would prefer to look at it as how can we all come together as a community to best educate all of the children. I've often said I reevaluate every year what is going to be the best schooling decision for my children, because ultimately, as a mother, that is my priority, is what is best for my children every year. If at some point in time that changes and what is best for them would be private school or public school, then so be it. I look at the thought of when I had spoken with Greg Drescher back in 2018, one of the things that had excited me about Warren County is they allow part-time enrollment for homeschoolers. Realistically, I'm never putting a chemistry lab in my house.
No.
So if I could enroll my child for science through the public school system, I'm going to do it. And that's actually quite profitable for the public school system. Once a homeschooler is involved in 2 core classes in the public school, full funding comes along with that child, and you're only schooling them through 2 classes. So why not expand what schooling looks like? I mean, maybe homeschooling works great for your child for certain subjects, but not for others. Let's not put up divides, but let's come together and let's get these kids educated.
And really it boils down to the parental involvement in any situation, especially with children and education. It's the children thrive when the parents are involved. An example I use is I can remember when my kids were in high school. Here they were 16 years old, and my wife had the opportunity to be home when they got home from school. She was there when they left, and she was there when they got home. And a big difference in their schoolwork, in their attitude about things. And I think it was just that comfort that mom was home when they got home from school. And not that, she wasn't anything different, but I mean, I noticed a big difference because we had moved and she had that opportunity to do that. And I think that's one thing. I see your children out and about, and they're most of the time well behaved.
Most of the time, yes. No child is behaved all the time.
We call her daughter an old soul because how old is she?
She's almost 12 now.
Oh, you're kidding. My gosh.
She's 11, almost 12.
Oh my gosh. So,
but yeah, she is something special.
Yeah, she is interesting. But it's just an interesting thing, and I'm just so glad that people like you and every one of the other candidates that are running. Anything else that you want to talk about that I didn't surprise you on?
I think one of the things that I have found myself focusing on now that I am in this seat is the need to raise the standard for behavior as well. There's at the last meeting you saw that I asked for incident reports, and looking at what's happened in Loudoun County, I think some good things can come from it. People assume, I've noticed outdoor knocking, people assume that the school board knows everything that goes on. And every time I've gone outdoor knocking, there has been at least one parent who has brought up an issue with bullying or fights, etc. And I was not aware of those, but I do think it's very important that our school board becomes aware, because we need to understand what the current vibe is in the school. We need to keep a pulse on what's going on in the schools. And so I do want to know, and I would ask that all parents and students please treat your teachers well, treat your fellow students well, because that really makes or breaks someone's schooling experience.
Yeah, if you ever really want to know about school systems, is volunteer to substitute, be a substitute teacher. It will open your eyes.
Yes, and we need substitute
Yes,
teachers
I was
right
saying
now.
that.
Substitute nurses, bus drivers, please
Yes.
come work for the school
I
system.
see, and, and you get paid.
Yes.
But
More
that's-
now after
I
we've
know, it's
voted
right.
in the raises.
I know.
Yes.
Keep pouring the money in. But substitute teachers, it will open your eyes of kind of the back room dealings at the school system, and realizing that we should bring back corporal punishment. But that's another subject.
Those were your words, not mine.
That's right. Don't blame her on that. That's spare the rod, spoil the child. Anyway, which has nothing to do with beating your children, by the way. But anyway, it's just an interesting thing that the discipline is a problem, and not just in the schools, but in our whole society. That I think a lot of people blame that on all these video games, too much screen time, maybe, and not enough family time. I think that's probably true on a lot of things. But so tell your children how much you love them, and I think we
Get
should
involved.
and get involved.
Get
And-
involved. Parental involvement is
Right.
key. It really is. Just
and go to
key.
these meetings and pay attention
Please.
while your children are in school, even when they're not in school. And it's surprising how many parents we have that their children have graduated, but they're still involved in the public school system because they really want what's best for
Yes.
our community. Because what really governs our community is our schools, and that sets the future. Of course, you've always heard the cliche, children are our future. And they are.
But they literally are.
They are.
They
Because they're
are
going to
our
be paying your
workforce.
Social Security. I mean,
And
that's
they're
what-
our workforce. So if
That's
we aren't
true.
doing a good job educating them and teaching them not only the information, but the work ethic and the behavior that goes along with it, that you can't hire people right now, well,
That's
look
right.
to the schools. I
Well,
mean, we have to...
One thing, I used this example before, and that is years ago when I had a client, the ASCD, Association of School Curriculum Development. We went up to a conference that they did, and Lee Iacocca was the keynote speaker, and that's when he was the chairman at Chrysler. And he worked with Detroit schools, and one of the things that they had come up with, because they would hire their students, and then they couldn't meet the requirements, so they had to re-spend millions and millions of dollars
goodness.
retraining. But one of the things they came up with, the school system guaranteed their graduates to meet these requirements. And if they don't, we'll take them back and retrain them. And I think that's something that maybe with the
Yes.
school system we should think about to our local employer. We guaranteed our students. I mean, that's what we want. And I think that, we expect that when a kid graduates from high school, they should be able to read. And we hear all
Yes.
sorts of stories that they can't read, So I think we should think about that. And when you're on the school board, we're going to push you and say, Melanie, this is one of your activist causes you can take on. Guarantee our students. But it's a pleasure, really, and we want to let people kind of see a different side of our candidates and little few things that you're not going to get.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you. That's why we call this a conversation. We see a little different things. But as you knock on these doors, you mentioned some of the things that people said. Is there anything in particular, though, that really stands out, that something positive about our, that...
Overall, parents love our schools. They love our teachers. And the majority of the staff that I've met have been very welcoming and kind, and I have been pleasantly surprised. I had the opportunity to tour AS Roads and see the renovation, and what an amazing school.
Yeah, it is.
I love
amazing.
it. I absolutely love
and
it.
it's like some of these, all our older schools have got air conditioning now. I mean, it's kind of like one of those things we've always thought they had it, and surprisingly that they didn't. But anyway, we got great facilities, and now it's just to keep them up and to keep our staff happy and giving the tools they need. And that's one of the jobs of the school board, is make sure that we have the tools we need to educate our students.
And it all starts with an open dialogue. Open dialogue between the teachers and the administration, and between the parents and the teachers and the administration, and between the citizens and the school board as well. So that's
Well, you
one
got
of
your
the
work
things I
cut
hope
out
to-
for you, and again, as you're going to serve another couple months before January, so you're going to get your feet wet, and hopefully, if you move forward, you'll have some experience, and if you don't, you'll have some experience, because I can bet you're going to be at those school board meetings.
You're going to deal with me in one way or the other.
One way or the
so
other. She's not gonna
just
go away.
decide which side you want me on.
That's right. Again, Melanie, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. And
Thank you.
And good luck on your campaign. And you got a few more days left to knock some doors. And hopefully people will meet you and see where you're coming from.
Great. Thank
All
you
right,
so
thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you.